So it's 2024. The markets are shifting, and I decided I was going to go with the Realtor mom, aka the real estate badass, aka Natalia Paulino. What's up, Natalia? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm your homegirl over here, just relaxing.
That
Enjoying Friday chill weather. It's drizzly outside, so
and
I'm
you're
ready.
still making moves, right?
I know. I was just thinking about how it's 2024. We're already coming to the end of the first month. Um, so I already feel like it's going a little fast for me.
Yeah, this first month has been a little bit of a blur. And I think part of it is that there's so much moving, like there's so many moving pieces, right? And obviously we're in the real estate space. I'm also in the tax space. So for me, it's like a lot of things seem to be in alignment, right?
Right.
Um, but now that things are, well, I mean, we're still in the middle of winter, but I feel like real estate wise, things are starting to thaw up faster than expected. And I don't know if they're really froze, if I'm being honest, right? Can
Right.
you say that like the real estate market was dead this past 2 months?
I just feel like things have been more normal than what we were used to. Everybody got used to the frenzy of COVID.
Hmm.
So it started to slow down and get back to normal. And then people feel like the housing market is crashing. And it's really not, because if we look at the numbers and we go back to like pre-COVID, we're still seeing an increase, right?
Hmm.
For same time of year. Um, we have probably, we feel like there's so much less inventory, but this is the new norm, right?
Hmm.
And we just got so used to everybody just going everywhere during COVID. But I do feel like, yeah, we can talk about what do we think is going to come, like what's happening this coming year, right? What are we predicting? And a lot of it has to do with interest rates. Everybody's waiting for interest rates to drop. And I
Hmm.
think like we've been hearing it for months and months and months. We're so over it, right? And yet,
Right.
and yet, I think this year is going to be the year that everything's going to start making sense to everybody. This is the new norm. This is where we're at. Interest rates and what this, hopefully the fives, but definitely sixes.
Mhm.
And that's okay. We can still make a move. It still makes sense. We're not going back to years ago when interest rates were 18%. Like, if that's crazy, if you want to talk about crazy interest rates, I would worry about that. But we didn't even get close to that.
Mhm.
We should be happy we only went up to what, seven and eights. We didn't hit 10.
Right, right. And it's. I mean, I guess before we even get started, just for whatever reason, on the off chance it applies. Look, our crystal balls are still in the shop. They're all broken. So right, and this is not personal financial advice by any stretch of the means. It's just how we view
Yeah.
things and what our personal opinions are in terms of how we would buy or sell
Yeah.
or what
And
we're
it's
seeing in the market.
also, yeah, from experience, we know we've seen home sellers, home buyers, lenders. We hear the conversations that are going on. We hear what the concerns are, what the
Mhm.
pains are, but like what the ultimate goals are is what we really want to focus on. Because if we're just focused on the fear of like walking in with even a 7% interest rate, nobody's ever going to make a move.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, how much are you spending on your rent? You got to
Mhm.
live somewhere. You might as well be paying it towards yourself in the long run.
Right. And
And I think, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, for me, I guess one of the things that I'm starting to understand before I was an agent is kind of when people are like, well, is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to sell? And now I more and more understand that. Let me guess, it's always a good time to buy and sell. And I'm like,
Right,
honestly, yeah, right. Because the other equally as annoying answer is it depends, right? Which
right,
is situation? What is the right? Because like right now, what I'm hearing from the other folks who are on the maybe we'll buy side is, oh, I'm waiting for the interest rate to drop, or even the sellers, right? Because the sellers, they're usually going to buy something else,
they're
right? So
gonna
I still
move.
put them in the
Right,
same bucket. So they're like, well, I'm waiting for the interest rate to drop. I'm like, let's think about this logically, right? If the interest rates drop, doesn't that mean that everyone else and their mamas are going to want to come out again and go try to take another shot at buying something? So wouldn't we, hopefully not as severe, but be in a similar situation during COVID where people were all out in the streets trying to get multiple bids and trying jacking up the prices, right? And
right,
like, well, this time would be different. I'm like, so explain to me, right? Because for my like some of the other job that I do is on the tax consulting side is I have to look at some certain metrics, and some of it is look, the only real lever at this point that even the experts are looking at is for the prices to drop is for people to not have money. What does that mean? People lose jobs. What does that mean? Unemployment needs to go down, right? Or unemployment has to go up, right? And so people have to be in a real dire situation. I mean, look, the labor market is softening, right? But for me, it's like, are you really going to wait, or would you rather just find a place that makes financial sense to you, right? And I guess that's the other side of it. They're like, oh, date the rate. I'm like, yeah, but again, let's just in case, let's focus on a house that you can afford now, like comfortably, actually afford, not like we're going to be living on canned beans for the next 8 years, right? Just something that's reasonable now. And I know that's another spiel that I'm going to keep toting on, but is that something that you're seeing make more sense these days with our clients and prospects?
So what I've come to realize is it's just having a more open conversation with the buyer or a seller. And
Mm-hmm.
people can say like, "Oh, you're just trying to make a deal, close a deal." But yes and no, like yes, I'm trying to close a deal, but that's not my only intention. My intention is to educate clients so then they can make the best decision for themselves. At the end of the day, I don't sign closing documents, the clients do. It's a personal
Mm-hmm.
decision going off of information that we can provide them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think so a few key points for sellers right now is they're thinking about, I'm going to sell, then I'm going to walk into a high interest rate. I might as well just stay. Okay, well, have you thought about how much equity you have in your home? Maybe you paid $500,000 for this home, but you're basically taking your equity, putting it into this other home. You're not going to be financing that much. So maybe the interest rate might be a little slightly higher than you expected, but you're not financing $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I would look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other options as well that we're talking about as assumable loans. Those are other options for them to consider as well, whether they have one or they walk into one. I just feel like there's not enough conversation about all the different options that are available. And
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much hyper focus on interest rates. And it's
Right.
been going on for so many months. And sometimes when you get on a phone with somebody, it's hard for you to break that pattern of
Mm-hmm.
thought because it's been drilled into them in social media, in the news, when they're talking with friends or family or whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not doing that extra step to get a little bit more information and education from the people that do this day in, day out and
Mm-hmm.
have been doing it for years.
I guess part of me would be so I guess would you put that in the bucket of motivation? So if they are not willing to at least ask for free advice, whether it be speak to a lender, speak to a realtor, speak to right. Like if they're saying, nah, no, I think I'm just gonna wait till I'm ready without any arbiter, any
Yeah,
actual real right. Would you put that under not motivated?
possibly, they might not, their why, their reason might not be big enough,
Mm-hmm.
and some people thought they were going to sell just because they could make that extra money selling, when the market was crazy. And then also some of the people that did do that, then, a year later, 2 years later, they were already ready to move again because they weren't happy with their decision. So it's not, to me, they shouldn't just focus on how much they're spending. It's just like really like, what do you really want and why do you want it?
Mm-hmm.
That way, at the end of the day, when you make that move, you're going to be happy. You're going to be satisfied. It's not going to matter. You're not even going to think about the interest rate.
Right. I mean that is true. I mean that is interesting, isn't it? For especially for those who are looking for your home, right? Like your primary residence.
Right.
They really like I feel like most people will stress the purchase portion and eventually when they're selling, but that's like so in total it's like what a couple months maybe out of
Yeah.
this whole time that you're living there, and even then, even afterwards, I think most people don't even think twice about it after like that
Hmm.
month or two after, right? So for me, I like what actually matters. Does is this something that matters just because you're looking for a great deal? Which honestly, more time. Well, at least the times that I've seen it pencils out to almost nothing, right? Like they don't. It's not a blip on your radar. You don't think about it, right?
Right.
Which look, as I'm sure as realtors, we're still going to be one of those people like arms tooth and nail trying to protect our clients, equity at every possible turn, right?
Right.
Until they tell us, hey, like Natalia, take it easy, take it easy. It's not that serious, right? But in terms of the market this coming year, uh, so just for generally speaking, the industry expectation is that there are going to be multiple cuts throughout the year in terms of interest rates, and that will eventually translate down to lower mortgages.
Right.
I'm hearing vast ranges of anywhere from like fives to sixes.
Hmm.
Generally, seems to be the consensus of within
Right.
the next year or two. That's the range we're looking at.
And I think
Which,
that's what people need to hear. It's
mm-hmm,
not going to be 3%.
mm-hmm,
Possibly I don't even know if 4% is going to be an option,
mm-hmm.
so
So what do you
I
want
think
to do,
it's right.
right?
I do feel like this year, though, people are going to make more moves because they've been waiting long enough.
Yep.
I think everybody at the end of the day still has their limit, right? How long
Mm-hmm,
they're going to wait if they
mm-hmm,
really want to make that move. And I feel like this is going to be the year. I think it's going to be a great year. There's going to be a lot more movement going on, and it's not going to be so caught up in the interest rate,
mm-hmm.
um, that whole interest rate drama line, whatever, like mindset. People
Yep.
are just going to be ready to make the move. They've been waiting. They're ready. Let's go. Let's do
Mm-hmm.
this. I think it's going to be a good year.
I think so too, right? And let me be clear. This is specifically New York, right? So like, because I'm getting these things from some of my buddies like out of state, like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. Did you see X, Y, and Z? I'm like, please remember, New York markets do not operate the same way everyone else does. Just like any bits of information doesn't always apply to your backyard. Our
Right.
backyard is gonna be different, and even I would argue, even if say hypothetically this crash that everyone's praying for does come through, I have a hard time believing that the New York market is going to have a real crash situation, right?
Right.
You might see a dip, right? It would make sense. However, let's keep it real. Like even during 2008 when everything was falling apart, did we take a hit? Yeah, but it wasn't like disastrous, right? So for those
You
who
might
are
see like a
waiting,
small dip, but then you got all those
right,
people waiting for those opportunities that are just going to come in and scoop them up.
right. So for me, yeah, I think I agree. We're going to see more action. Um, Unfortunately, it's going to be at a higher price point still, and it's going to keep climbing, right?
Right.
And we did, my particular neighborhood, we saw some swings here and there, right? Because again, hyper local depends neighborhood to neighborhood, not just the city, not just boroughs, is between neighborhoods.
Right.
We're seeing some where we have our listing. Uh, I'm still seeing interesting fluctuations, right?
Hmm.
And I think those who are even willing to take shots at buying something this fall, not fall, this spring, wow, before the fall hits, in that whole time up before the fall hits, I think we're going to see some interesting stories of people who were thinking, yeah, I thought this was going to be a bad time and it turned out to be the best time ever, right?
Hmm.
Next to what we just missed, right? So, um,
New York is very interesting because it everything in our markets vary borough to borough, neighborhood to neighborhood, even street to street.
mhm,
And I have seen things, some crazy things happen because like people want a piece of New York City where you think like, oh, nobody would ever pay that price for X amount on
mhm,
this property or whatever. And then like the next thing you know, I'm like, wait, what? That just sold for like 200,000 more than I thought. And this was like I'm talking about outside of COVID as well. Like
mhm,
I feel like New York City is always going to be a good investment.
mhm.
Now, that would also depend on how long you plan to hold it, right? But at the end of the day, if it's like a sit and hold long term thing, I don't think you could ever lose out here.
Right. And I would generally agree, right?
We're not going to get
And
any development here. Whatever's here is here. I mean,
yeah,
yes,
the land is dead
there's a
none.
little, yeah, there's a little bit of new development going on, but they usually have to tear something down. It's rare
Yep.
that it's like from the ground up on a new lot. But yeah, it's limited, so people are going to always want a piece of it.
Yeah, and that is something that it could just be my algorithms or whatever, but I am seeing that there are more approvals being handed out for these large developments and these high rises in areas that usually were subject to this NIMBY pushback, which is not in my backyard, right? Folks,
Right.
there are a lot of folks who are like, you're not putting this 10-story, 12-story behemoth in my neighborhood, but looks like I'm seeing a trend of more buildings being approved, and I'm seeing more you know um, I guess lotteries for like like affordable housing and things of that
A
nature come down the
lot,
pike.
yeah.
And look, whether you're for or against, I think is right. That's a separate issue. But I think from my perspective, what that means is for those who are priced out of the market in terms of purchasing, it looks like there may be some more options for you in terms of renting until you get to such a point where you can afford purchasing something on your own, right?
Yeah.
From someone who is in the investment plus ownership side of things, I'm like, I would still prefer, like, if it's, you're my friends or my family, try your best to figure out a way to buy something, right?
Right.
Because I was mad at the mortgage I'm paying. I was, right? And then when I spoke with my wife recently, I'm like, honestly, we're not happy with the amount of money that we're paying per square foot. However, with all things considered, including the way, right, we see the rents going up and all this, I'm
Right.
like, honestly, we're at a point now. If the proverbial crap hit the fan, like, we sell this place, we take this equity, and the whole time we were paying this mortgage, guess what? We just bought ourselves a higher down payment for wherever we want to go to,
Right.
right?
You're never losing out. That money's yours.
Right. And this is where I think I guess it helped me for selfish reasons for me to be on that CPA end, because now I'm like, yeah, you're gonna be complaining about what you paid in mortgages, but how much tax benefit did you take advantage of while you're
Right.
owning this thing, right?
True.
Um, different strokes, different folks, but I think you're gonna have a quite interesting year. No, I mean, I know you're always gonna be grinding, right? But are you seeing that shift in terms of how your business interactions are going this so far? I know it's only been a month, not even, right? But are you seeing that there's an uptick of people interested and like more interesting conversations happening so
There
far?
are. And so what I've been doing with the people that are not ready to make a move right now, I have been generating a list of people who would sell, who are interested, and my goal is to basically start connecting dots,
Hmm.
right? Like if I know this person's ready to leave over here and this person's ready to leave over here and the dots kind of connect. I don't necessarily have to be like, yes, I need to put it on the market and do all this kind of stuff, and that's like me servicing them
Hmm.
versus me trying to get a listing to put my name on and service myself. I think
Hmm.
that's like just where my mindset is right now is like getting a list together and really knowing like who's out there that would sell if they got the right number or would sell as soon as interest rates drop and like help them make that move as soon as possible before they have to deal with, a rush of other buyers, right? Because if we're all waiting for the same timing, like we always know this in springtime, everybody wants, like right now, everybody's waiting for spring. And then like it's a big old rush, right? More
Hmm.
competition. So for me, I'm like, how can I help some of my clients avoid that?
Hmm. Hmm. And I think that is the other frustration. I think now that if you have enough years, you understand that process, right? Like, from a seller standpoint, I would argue that it makes me make more sense for you to get the listing and all that stuff squared away now,
Hmm.
right? Because from the buyer perspective as well, like, you want months prior, not weeks prior, right?
Right.
Of like, we need to get this thing assessed. We need to make sure the house is ready. We need to make sure that if there's clutter, you have time to move things to where storage, clean, whatever you got to do. Then once that's squared away, do we need to paint some walls? Do we need to spruce up your floors? Do we need, right, before we get the photos done? Once we get the photos done, it's not going to be 2 days and suddenly you can have this offer of $500,000 over ask,
Right.
right? It might be a month before, or I mean, well, the average is higher than that, right? Obviously, depending on your markets, but on average, we're seeing three ish. I think it's bleeding into that third month now for my neighborhood anyway. But you should at least have some kind of interest, right? Some kind of offer, something, right? But
Right.
it still might take a month or two or three, depending on how you structure your deals, to actually get it closed. So in that time, like, what are you doing? Right?
Mm.
There's a lag. But from a buyer's perspective, if what are their wants and needs? Do we need to move to this location before the fall because Johnny has this school he wants to go to? Well, if that's the case, then, and that's 2-3 months lag time, doesn't that mean that you need to start looking now? Get your pre-approval now. Get like, if your pre-approval numbers aren't up to snuff and you can square away some items in that month, shouldn't you do that now?
Right.
Right? And I know from a realtor's perspective, they're like, oh yeah, we should get this stuff done, and then your client might be like, yeah, I think we'll wait until we kind of see more things that we like. I'm like, it might be too late, right?
Hmm.
and I guess this is a long-winded way of cautioning you potential buyers and sellers. Like, please understand that at a bare minimum, you will likely want a 3 month gap between when you think you're going to have it done
Mm-hmm.
and when you start. Bare minimum, please, 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 because you're going to be heartbroken and realize that the stuff that you should have lined up isn't done in time, and you can't get it the way you want it, and you lose out on money on the table or whatever opportunity because you weren't ready. Talk to your realtor, talk to your lenders, talk to your financial advisors, talk to your tax advisors, talk to your team. Make sure this is all squared away. Ty, did I mess anything up here?
No, that's good. Yeah, so that's definitely
Okay.
another conversation I've been having as well, is letting them know the full timeline. Um, if they're a buyer, of course, because most of the time it's their first time and they don't understand the timeline and think they're going to have their home in like a month. And I tell them, so
Yep.
realistically, I like to
Mm-hmm.
tell everybody you're looking at least 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can get it done in 3 months, but I'd rather stretch it a little bit more for them because usually it's not a problem to move in earlier.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually ready to go. But if
Yep.
they're expecting to move in like 3 months or 2 months or 1 month and then we're there, they're not very happy because they've already lined up a bunch of stuff. So I'd
Mm-hmm.
rather shoot longer, close earlier, and everybody be happy than tell them like, oh yeah, we can get you in 2 months, no problem. Like we all know that's
Mm-hmm.
not going to happen in New York City. It's very rare, unless we're dealing with cash, and even sometimes with cash, depending on what all the details are behind the scenes stuff going on, you never know.
Right. And I mean, I guess recently one of the cases in point was, for me, was just they're looking, a friend of a friend looking for a house, and they figured it was just gonna be like a month or two. Month, I think, was actually more what they thought was gonna happen,
Right.
but they were their lease was coming up in a month, so they thought perfect timing. I'm like, no, like you have nothing done, nothing. Literally, it was just a decision that you were gonna go hunt for a house.
Right.
Did you like? I'm looking for. I look at the market. There's maybe a dozen houses, right? And I'm pretty sure based off what you just told me, none of them qualify at all, right? So there's that search time. First off, there's no pre-approval done. Thankfully, they made good money, but the issue then became by the time the lease ran up, they had nowhere to stay because the landlord wanted to crank up their rent for something like $500 or some number like that, and they're like, oh crap, he doesn't want to do month to month, but he wants to increase rent 500. What do we do? I'm like, I could tell you what you should have done, right? But now you're gonna have to go find a place that's willing to do midterm rental style thing or month to month, or you wait a year, or you do the full year lease with the expectation that you might be on the hook to pay for the difference if and when you buy a house. What do you want to do, right? And like, I wish I spoke to you. I'm like, well, that's it is what it is. But I think this happens more times than people assume, like would think, right? Especially if you're renting. I think you should start this conversation, I would say, at least 6 months before,
Yeah, agreed.
right? Because I think that breaks my heart, right? Right, if you get this weird situation, I know rent isn't cheap. I know that it is a very nerve wracking process, but I think every time I have these conversations with other realtors, other people who are looking to buy or sell, and in the back of my head, I'm like, I know that there's Natalia, I know there's Carl, I know there's all these realtors, dude. Like, I'll give you the number. I'm like, look, go talk to them, right? I'm not taking clients right now, so go talk to them. And I might touch base with them. Like, did you talk to them? Like, no. What are you doing? So we're gonna wait. And I'm like, oh, okay. So if you wait, I guarantee you, in like 6 months, we're gonna have this conversation, and you're gonna say, I wish I talked to them.
Right.
But do you, boo boo? Do you? Rent done. I'm sorry.
I feel like sometimes people get nervous to do it. I don't know if
Mhm,
they're just nervous about, going into their finances and like not
mhm.
just going into them, but like with somebody else and like they're going through like their credit and they probably get a little
Of
bit
course.
nervous about that part, like the invasion of privacy and all that
You
kind of
see,
things that
yep,
are
yep.
going on. I don't know, but I feel like even if you think you can't buy a home or you're thinking of buying a home even in like a year, I would already
Mhm,
say go talk to a lender. That way you get familiarized with the whole process or what
mhm.
you could still do or what you shouldn't do in that meantime versus waiting. And then when you actually decide, okay, I'm going to buy a home this year, and then like get shut down because your credit was low or you don't have enough a down payment or whatever the case is, like I don't think it's ever too early
Mhm.
to educate yourself on the process, right? Never too early to know what like like what to expect, how to get prepared. And that's speaking with a lender, speaking with an agent. And I've had people call me up and I've had full conversations with them and they're like, I know I'm not ready. I said, that's okay. That's what I'm here for. What questions do you have? Because I would much rather you start having questions now and have an answer and get everything ready in the next 6 months or a year versus you
Mhm.
waiting a year and like you're starting from the very bottom.
Mhm.
Like I think that's where I'm good at. I could be patient with people with that. Not a lot of people, they want immediate business and they don't want to deal with you until you're ready. But I don't know. I feel part of the process is educating people ahead of time so they know what to expect. They know how to get
Mhm.
prepared. They know what to do. And I feel like they also, it relieves their stress and makes them happier throughout the entire process versus
Mhm.
like you're like so nervous and you're starting everything. You're getting all this information at one time and you're already overly emotional because you like, this is probably going to be the biggest investment of your life.
Mhm.
And I noticed that with people because like I can tell them one thing and then the next day or next week they're like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, what? We went over this. I get it. Like I know there's a lot going on in your head right now. Let's go through it again.
I mean, so if you were to, so give me your, and again, just to be clear, this is like our crystal ball is broken type. No guarantee of any kind of future. We have no idea what's going to happen. But what would you say your 1 year, 3 year, 5 year thesis is going to look like in terms of the real estate market in New York City?
In New York City. I I don't know. I just feel like it's always going to be okay. It's just going to keep growing. It's going to get better. There's going to be more housing opportunities. Like you said, like we've noticed a lot more new like buildings being built that normally it was just probably like single family, two family, whatever the case is. Now you have these bigger buildings that are coming in, new developments that are taking over. They're knocking down these other like either most of the time they're knocking down what was there previously and they're building up. And it's going back to what I said is there's just limited land. So that is the only option, right? And I feel like that's how they're able to actually push these gentrification and new development agendas is because there
Mhm.
isn't enough space for everybody. So what do they have to do? They have to build up. And the only way to do that is to knock something down that was previously there. I've seen it happen throughout Bushwick. There's several multiple like two families in a row that were taken and then knocked down and then you have a huge development. But instead of having what that's probably 6 units or 8 units, whatever how many lots they took over, and now they have, you know, 30 or more, depending on like
Mhm.
what the zoning is. So I just feel like there's going to be more housing opportunities as all these buildings keep getting built up. And there's obviously going to be pros and cons to it, right? Like more housing, but then it's like, oh my gosh, more people in like a tighter space, more noise, whatever the case is, especially if they're doing commercial space on the lower level, then that's more noise if they put like a restaurant or a bar or whatever the case is going to be there. Um,
Mhm.
but that's just how I see it. I just feel like things are just going to keep growing, things are going to get busier. Um, I don't know. I don't, it's hard for me to use the word affordability in New York City because I am from Texas. Like I always think back to Texas prices and what I bought my house for in Texas. And I want to buy more in Texas. And I think about what's here and it just blows my mind. Like it's hard for me to consider anything affordable.
And I think it's just a matter of perspective and reference point, right?
Right.
Um, dude, if you find any good opportunities in Texas, you gotta let me know because like me and a group of pals who are looking for more investment properties, we're like chomping at the bit,
Yeah.
and like all the investors I know right now, they're all foaming at the mouth, right? The cash reserves are just screaming for something to buy.
Yeah.
But let's see, my thesis. I would say, okay, so for this year, I suspect that the interest rates, like we agreed, I think it's gonna be closer to the like low sixes, maybe high fives. Again, no, there's no guarantee here. I just my gut tells me that. Um, as that happens, right now, I think our inventory is going to be super low. But as that interest rate takes down, I think more sellers may be willing to sell.
Right.
I don't think that's going to be enough to affect the prices downward. I think if anything, it's going to make the prices more closer to parabolic than it is anything else. Because I think as the interest rates drop, more people are going to apply for loans, and as the sellers want to sell stuff off, I think there's going to be bidding wars again
Right.
in New York. For those who get priced out, I think they are going to push out to the adjacent neighborhoods, which is going to further along the gentrification. Um, Even with the affordable housing that is coming in and the high rises that are coming through, I don't necessarily see this helping those who want to be a homeowner, to be honest. 3 years. I mean, the only thing within 3 to 5 years, I think even if there was a dip in the price, I don't think it's going to be lower than this year, right? I think if for the next 3 years, if it ends up going 50% total,
Mhm.
right? I would say more reasonable might be like over for 3 to 5 years, you might see like a 30% difference. I don't know, right? But let's say 30%. Even if it dips, it'll be like 5%, right? Like you're not for people hoping for the crash. I'm sorry, I don't see you paying less than today
Right.
ever, right? So with that said, if my prescription, if I were to help one of my friends, would be look, find what you can afford, lock it down, right? For my investor buddies, I know you guys are all waiting. Generally, multifamilies just don't really pencil out cash flow, generally speaking, right? And just because there are more units, I don't see this helping your thesis, right?
Yeah.
But are there deals to be had? Yes. Are they incredibly hard to find? Yes. Are you likely going to find somewhere else to invest if it's investment somewhere else? Absolutely, right? Take that with a grain of salt. But for me, if I find a multifamily just for my own family planning, I might do it, right? It's going to cost me more. It's not going to really cash flow. But if I plan to be here for like 10 years, then maybe I don't care.
Right.
Right? So for those who are, I'm holding on to you for too long because I know you got a lot of things to do today.
Yeah.
Any last bits that people should be aware of? Because
No, I think we
we've
should just end
definitely.
on that note. Yeah, I think for buyers, sellers, whoever, it's all about what you can afford. And it doesn't matter what's going on around you, or what's going on, you know, it's like case by case basis. And if you're able to afford it, then move forward. If the numbers make sense, then move forward. All
Mhm.
the other stuff that everybody's talking about doesn't necessarily apply to everybody.
Mhm.
It's all about personal goals and your personal financials and what makes sense for you.
Absolutely, 1,000% agreed. So for those who, well, if people need to reach out and figure out, what their next move is going to be, how can they find you?
Yeah, I am active on social media with Facebook, Natalia Paulino. Just search me, Natalia Paulino, Realtor. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm reached by, call or text 347-941-4246. That would probably be the quickest way to get a response from me.
Well, you heard it here, and I think I'm going to keep having to nag you to do more stuff,
Yeah, we do.
because I think this year, now that we know or are expecting more fast-paced moves, maybe we figure out a system where we could do more updates for folks because I'm getting asked, and maybe this will be the fast way to do it. We'll just tell everyone all at once.
I like that. I want
Okay.
to commit to doing more. And then even if we see more stuff, updates or like even what we're talking about, I did a video one time on like one of the new affordable housing lotteries and things like that. We could easily jump on when those pop up as well and talk about them. Um,
Oh, perfect. And you
and
have something on your Instagram
for what?
for the lotto.
I don't. I just,
Ooh.
there was one day I did a live video on it and was talking about it. And I was thinking, like, oh, this is some good stuff that we should be going over every now and then.
Hell yeah,
Because a
absolutely.
lot of people are interested in it, and a lot of people don't understand or how to find it or what's going on.
Hmm. That's I'm down. We could always hunt down some info. Well, in that case, looks like we have our work cut out for us. I think we're gonna. I think he starts that way, and then there's like never ending topics.
Yeah.
But I'm not mad at it. All right, so thank you for your time, Natalia. I know it's been tricky kind of squeeze you in because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on. If you guys have a moment, make sure to reach out to Natalia. I would trust her absolutely with my family. So, you can't go wrong there, right?
Yeah.
So with that said, thank you for your time, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.